Hello, thank you so much for coming to the Sashiko Live Streaming. This is Atsushi. This is the live streaming where I talk about Sashiko while doing some Sashiko stitching. This is not a lecture, tutorials, or webinars that I teach something specifically. So please bring your Sashiko, your own Sashiko project and stitch together. And then if you could listen to this as like a radio, that'd be great. Your request for me to talk about some specific theme would be nice. I really appreciate it. I hope that I can elaborate some of the stories more. And there are few announcement I have. I will be in Minneapolis, downtown, I guess, like nearby the University of Minnesota Twin Cities, next weekend. Thursday, no, not Thursday, Friday and Saturday, and I will be greeting the visitors to the textile center in Minnesota from noon to 1 p.m. So if you are nearby there, I'll be there to talk. I'll be there to show some samples. So that'd be great to see you there. And also I do have the workshop planned in Brooklyn, Dumbo, on over the first weekend of August, which is 3rd and 4th, I believe. And I think that there's still, I've learned that there's still spot available for that workshop. So please check the website about those updates. I will put the link on that. Yeah, actually there's one link on that. Okay, so I will switch the camera and then start stitching. Hello, thank you so much for coming back. I will be stitching the sort of Sashiko, not really Sashiko, but sort of Sashiko. And I will talk about what is the difference between Sashiko and Boro once again. I made a post on the Facebook about this denim saying that I do not consider this as the Sashiko or even Boro. But discussion itself was very, very interesting. And it's not like nobody's fault, nobody's wrong. It's just this is how Sashiko and Boros have become something different completely over time. And I would like to clarify that one more time that they are not what it is introduced in English. Good evening. Thank you so much for coming. Okay, let's start. Let me find a place to enjoy. All right. It is quite hot, still quite hot in this area, so I may put the fan. We don't have AC down here, so we might put fan at some point. And if it makes a lot of noise, I don't think it's gonna make noise, but if it makes a lot of noise, please let me know. I will try to adjust that. There we go. Just a second. But yeah, Sashiko has became the word to celebrate showing off the mending or visible mending. There's nothing wrong with that when they are using this word after learning some of the stories behind it, but I don't think they know those stories. As the result, it is becoming something completely different, and my messages are pretty similar. Every week, I think I'm gonna deliver the very, very similar messages. But Unfortunately, Sashiko introduced in English right now is very not only simplified at this moment, it's very misled. So it's not a wrong, but it's not really helping much. The discussion was like I explained that this then what I'm doing right now is not I'm not gonna call it Sashiko. And there's a stories behind there's a reason behind it. At the same time, because it is introduced as either Sashiko or Boro, the discussion will move to something else that if this is Sashiko or Boro or other like the contemporary Sashiko versus traditional Sashiko, those are not really the discussion topic I'm trying to bring. It's not, of course, traditional, but it can be traditional. So it's not about the outcome of what they're seeing. It's more like a mindset. But the Sashiko introduced in English are not explaining those stories well because they don't know those stories. Those who are teaching the stories don't know the stories. Sorry, those who are teaching Sashiko don't really know about the stories. And as the result, it is a very sad thing is happening. So I'm trying to change some of the. I made another post on my Facebook group saying that I may be changing that group policy to lead to more like actively change some of the definition of what Sashiko is. I don't know if it's a good move or not, but it's something we have to do. Anyway, before I start talking about Sashiko and Boro, I hope that everybody's stitching and nicely. One thing I really, really don't like about those people who take over, not a takeover, take advantage of this trend and also trying to define that. So it is the guest and host issue, the analogy I used. It is the local and then visitors. So as long as they are aware that they are visitors to this culture and then they are enjoying it, they can do pretty much anything. The purpose is to visit and then purpose is to enjoy it. So I'm happy to share a lot of things. But when it comes to the teaching or even sharing what it is, the local, we have to listen to what local thinks because local are the people who reside in that community or even culture for this matter. And those who are just visiting yet pretend that they are the local, there's one big problem of them. They move to something else when they find something better or something that they can make more money. So they don't have any commitment. I wouldn't say any, but their commitment is too weak, too small to speak on behalf. I don't think. I think only like 50% of the people, not even less than 10% probably, of the people who think they know about Sashiko will be doing something else 5 or 10 years from now. So they're more like jumping around, which is, I'm not blaming that. I'm not accusing that jumping around. I'm just saying that those who jump around those things cannot change, or they should not change the kind of essence of the culture's practice itself. But they are doing that. If they decided to live there, that's great, but they have to live there. They have not live there, but like commitment. And I don't feel those commitment at all. And that really is the destroyer of the culture. They might say that they're not destroying the culture, but if it has the different meaning, it is the act of destroying. That's what's happening. I did not think this seriously back then. I was still wondering what I am missing. But after all of those years, it is somebody misleading the culture to make money, which is probably the word for that is cultural appropriation, which I don't still understand 100%. But it's not like appropriating the culture, but more like taking advantage of it. It's like somebody picking up the flower. Wow. Yeah, picking up the flower for the temporary pleasure and then stop thinking about the sustainability in that area. Those people who live there they have their own life after those visitors gone. Yet if they change those ecosystem, it's gonna take a lot of time to revise it, or they might have to lose that home or communities. And some may think that it's exaggerating it, but that's not something we define. It's something the people who live there should define, that if it's exaggerating or not. Like, if you think that this is Sashiko, that's great. And if you think this is Boro, that's great. But if you say that it is Sashiko or it is Boro because we think it's Boro Sashiko, then there's a big missing link between what we know and what it really tells. And there are people, not only myself, but there are some people in Japan who thinks that what I do right now today is not Sashiko, even of course not Boro. So I want them, not you, I want them to think why it happens. But again, we are the minorities, so if they don't want to hear it, they don't hear it. It's gonna take some time to even talk about it. They don't listen. They are not willing to. Yep. It looks cute. It looks cool. I have to admit, it looks kind of cool, and probably this is the trend that people are looking for, the Sashiko. But there are people, including myself, who thinks that this is not it. Oh. Yep. It is fun. I'm gonna admit it, it's pretty fun too. It's just not the word. This might be another analogy which I used today's Japanese live streaming this morning. But do you have a kind of standard breakfast that you kind of feel comfortable with? It can be something that we can associate with Sashiko we practice. Let's say that you live in the US. Your breakfast idea is either cereal, oatmeals, bread, sourdough bread, probably bacon, egg, if that's availability. Those kind of continental breakfast, right? I don't think you would eat like grilled fish from the morning or salty soup. Like miso soup may be available in the Japanese restaurant, but that's probably for dinner, not for the breakfast. And that's the ordinary you have. That's the common sense. That's kind of standard. That's what you expect for every day. Like every day, like boring every day. When you eat breakfast, you expect something very, very comfortable with you. And everybody else, not everybody, but the majority of people around you are doing the same thing. And you lived in that culture, and then you've been doing that with your own family too. So that's the culture of breakfast. The culture of eating the oatmeal, even if it's south, it might be called grit or something like that. And in Japan, of course, we do have the similar culture, not culture, similar patterns, which is eating the specific type of breakfast, which can be combination of rice and miso soup, and then sometimes pickles, sometimes fish as well. And there's nothing wrong with that, and it's not a matter of good or bad. It's just a difference, right? So when you as American have a chance to visit Japan, you have option to enjoy Japanese style breakfast. It might be good for you. You may like it. You may not like it. You may enjoy it for the first few days, but you may get tired of eating those, rice and salty soup in the morning. You may want to have just cereal, or you may want to just go back to the bread. It is your choice. It is very much your choice because you are the guest. You're visiting, you're a tourist. So it is your freedom to eat what you want. Nobody can control that. If you want to keep trying the Japanese style, go ahead. If you want to mix it, that's fine. If you want to stick with the cereal, that's perfectly fine. That's the kind of beauty of experiencing as the guest. However, if you decided to live there, I mean, even if you decided to live there, you can, of course, choose what kind of breakfast you want to have. That's again your choice. The problem happens when you open a bed and breakfast saying that this is the Japanese style of bed and breakfast. And you know your customers because your customers are mainly from the country you're from. Let's say America here. So you know that their need, they might not want to eat the Japanese style breakfast. And if it's breakfast, everybody knows about it, but because it's something else, not many local people can point out what they're doing. So, because nobody criticized, because nobody point out, the owner of the bed and breakfast start deciding serving their comfortable breakfast to attract the people who does not know much about the Japanese breakfast. And then because nobody's again pointing out, the owner can say that, well, this is the Japanese style with serving the bread and also scrambled egg. It can be Japanese style, but not the exactly same as the local breakfast. And then they start making money by saying, which means like false advertising what Japanese breakfast is like. And they don't take any criticism for that because they have been doing it for a long time. Or they might think that that's actually the style. But that's the time already that the culture has completely changed. The breakfast with rice, miso soup, and grilled fish are gone from the local because that new people, new owner will wipe out all of the existing culture or standard because they don't speak up, because they don't have the in, they are locals, so they don't accept any tourist. As the result, when they decided to say if when they decided to get back those income or those works, Japanese may advertise their attraction as they having Japanese breakfast with rice and miso soup and grilled fish. And the customers from the outside the country said that, well, this is not something I expected. It has to be bread and eggs and everything. But it's advertised as the Japanese breakfast. So that's kind of the one end of the culture because of someone who prioritized the comfort and profit over the locals. And this is the very extreme analogy, so it's not gonna, the Japanese style breakfast is not gonna be gone, even if they do false advertisement. Oops, I don't know where it is. But in Sashiko, because it's so small popularity and small population, and also it is very sad that Sashiko is also getting a little bit discontinued within Japan. We are very much being hassled to revive that, to try to revive it. So in the process of doing that, one can be, right now it's not going to be completely wiped away because I speak up, many other people are trying to speak up. So it will be somewhat reserved. But unfortunately, the main trend itself is not even there. That's what I meant by in English world. This may be considered Sashiko or Boro. Neither that word is suitable to me. If somebody asks me what I'm doing, I might say just I'm stitching, I'm patching the fabric on that. It doesn't have to be Sashiko or Boro because they don't really follow the principle of Sashiko or even Boro for that matter. Yeah, there's so many self-titled mastered who doesn't. I don't want to say who knows nothing about it because I hope they are learning something, but they know probably nothing about what I'm talking about. So it is quite sad, and then it's quite devastating at this point already. It's really gonna happen soon. The end of this culture. Nobody at the end. Worst case scenario, nobody will know what it was. And then some of the important perspective will be completely gone. Because those who does not introduce Sashiko without those introduce Sashiko without the context of the cultural background or local people's voice. I don't know what to do though. I mean, I'm gonna keep speaking up, and then I will consider thinking about more like leading instead of just sharing. But it is a lot of. It has been too late. I mean, it's not like recent years. It's just recent years that I realize it's too late, but it is too late. So it's after this. It comes with the pain, and only with the pain we can probably do something about it. But without that, Sashiko, some Japanese people practice may be completely gone. You may not believe that, but if they consider this as Sashiko Boro, then it's not gonna be that far future. This happened from the comments that somebody said that what I do is not Sashiko. When I was doing like this kind of geometric patterns, some people said that this is not Sashiko, which was quite interesting to hear that because I'm Japanese, I'm doing Sashiko for my life, and then this is the Sashiko I kind of received. And somebody else from somewhere completely irrelevant tell me that it's not Sashiko. That person was very confident. It's not like, well, I wonder what you might be doing is not Sashiko. It's not like those, like wondering. It was more very determined phrase that saying Sashiko is not that. Sashiko is this, probably this. He meant this. So that's kind of how I started thinking about it. What the heck is going on now in the world where I don't know? It's the world I don't know. I never thought, and I would ever imagine that word, foreign word for that matter, foreign word for them can be so different from what it is from origin. Yes, I was a little naive for that because there are so many words that became completely different. But I did not kind of imagine that wouldn't happen to Sashiko because it's kind of non-significant to me. But seems like it is significant. So I believe that those who are watching this today think that this is Sashiko too. Don't get me wrong, if you think this is Sashiko, that's perfectly fine. Just this is not the only Sashiko. I consider this not Sashiko, so it's kind of in vague area. But I just want you to know that there are people who thinks that it's Sashiko and it's completely different side, opposite side in a different culture. But don't you think that's kind of interesting? I really find it interesting. Like this is how culture changes over time. Like kombucha is probably a good example. The kombucha you can expect to get in Japan is not exactly the kombucha you can get in the US too. And I don't know if that is the marketing strategy or what happened. And I don't have enough say or word to kind of even defend, or even I don't know if I should even defend that. But kombucha in Japan is not the probiotic fermented soda with a lot of kind of flavors. That's the kombucha in English. It's completely different thing. If you order some, if you have a chance to order kombucha, you might want to check that if it's the Japanese kombucha or some kombucha which is in trend. But yeah, if this new kombucha in Japan got the majority's consensus context, then it's kind of big problem because those who enjoy kombucha as the kombucha in Japan may lose itself. Quite personally speaking, I do not enjoy the kombucha in English in the US. So if I have a choice in Japan, I would like to have the kombucha itself, not the different version. It can coexist, it should coexist with the stories behind it. But if one decided to say that one is kombucha and one is not, which is happening in Sashiko right now, is going to destroy the culture or people there. It's kind of like, I don't think I'm exaggerating it, but we are observing that scary things happening right now. It happened, so this kind of things happened to many culture, including kombucha too. And it's really difficult to redo it reverse it. But I am now in the middle of that change. And unfortunately, the change is quite strong. It's the number of people with that change is quite strong. They don't wish to understand or learn from the origin. They just want to go with what they know, what they feel comfortable. Because their goal is to enjoy. Their goal is to get more likes on Instagram or more attention from others. So their joy comes over somebody's culture, which is quite sad. I mean, having fun is perfectly fine, and that's, everybody's right. I want them to have fun too. But there's a way to make it more sustainable too. And right now it's lost. It's not 100% lost because, I mean, thanks to you who are here today, thanks to those who take my workshop and who keep stitching, thanks to them, I don't think it's going to be completely lost. I mean, I wish, not I wish, it's my hope that it's not going to be completely lost. But it can happen. And it has happened, it had happened in the bigger picture. So it's quite sad. And a few years later, probably 5 years later or so, many people leave this trend because the trend has to be somewhat fresh all the time. And it will be left, some of the artisans will be left behind completely without their dignities for that matter. Because what they do will lose the name for that. If this is Sashiko, then this is not Sashiko. Then what? There are so many people who do this as a Sashiko, and they lose their not a value but dignity. And that's kind of one end of the sustainability in terms of the culture. And that's I see a lot of those. And that's one place is on the Facebook. They're saying like, well, if you find the way you like, find the way you enjoy, that's what matters. And then my question is, why do you have to call it Sashiko then? It doesn't have to be Sashiko. Like, if it's just stitching, they're not really changing any of the word meanings. It's perfectly fine. But for some reason, they have to call it Sashiko, and that's here we are. It took 3, 4, 4, 5, almost 5 years to realize this. I'm very slow. But I am getting it finally. It is what it's happening. Where is my grip scissor? Ali? I think I had it. I had it somewhere. Just give me a little bit of... Ali, where did it go? Oh. It was on the floor. Don't drop the scissors on the floor. Atsushi. Yosh. Where was I? Where was I? It's getting somewhat done, so I'm happy with that. Soon or later, which... Alright, is it? This one is not fixed. Oh, this one's not fixed too. Okay. So I'll be in Minneapolis next weekend, next weekend. It is my first time to be in the city of Minneapolis, so I'm quite excited to be able to share some of the things we do. Um, many people take, not that many people take online class, so this may be the first time for some people there to even realize what Sashiko really is. So for that, it's a really good opportunity for me to actually share and then teach. Kind of, it's interesting, but if when they can do it, they will understand it. It's kind of simple, like riding a bicycle. I often say that like riding a bicycle is the analogy of this. But some people say that, you don't have to ride a bicycle, and which is true. You don't have to ride a bicycle, but the point is, can you? And if you cannot, and then saying like you don't need a bicycle, then that's a little different story. Hello. So, by actually sharing what I do, I hope that more people will understand what I mean. Yeah, it's really, to be honest, I don't know what to do. I know that I cannot give up, and I won't, but the trend is too strong, and it's kind of done deal for that matter. It has been damage has been done, which it is true that I should have done a little earlier, but I'm really surprised that many people think this is Sashiko and this is also Boro. Boro is not a name for style or technique, it's just one outcome of, like, one stage of the textile can become like the stage. It's not a design, it's not a technique, it's not the colors, it's not even philosophy for that matter. It's just a stage of one fabric's life. So technically speaking, what you have right now or what you wear right now has a potential to be a boro. Every single fabric, no matter what it is, not a paper towel, but like fabric, which can be used over time by washing it or cleaning it. Every single fabric with that qualification has a potential to be a boro. We just don't use the fabric until it has become like a boro, or we cannot use it because of the texture. So is this boro? Can be, it may be, it will be. But it's not really, this is not a boro style. This is not a boro stitching. This is not Sashiko. It's just me, or it's just patching. It's denim with patches. So many definitions, and those definitions are led by somebody who thinks they know about Sashiko. So I gotta kind of stop doing that. Beginning garment is pair of jeans. Yeah, it is. So one day, but I'm kind of making this as the antithesis of the trend, like showing that this is what they want, this is what you want. But I don't consider this as Sashiko. I enjoy it. I really enjoy it, but I don't sell this as Sashiko. I don't advertise it as Sashiko because it's not. I don't feel comfortable saying that. Yo, yo. What else? What else? What? I did almost this one. Yep. One more side, I guess. Just a second. This is almost done. Here. Well. So I hope the place you're joining here is not that hot. It's quite hot today. Okay. Let's start with this one. こう来て、こう来て、こう来て、ここかな。All cloth has the potential to become BORO, or all item made of cloth could potentially have BORO phrase. All cloth, including the garment or even the piece of like this towel that I'm wiping my hand. This is just the wiping cloth or towel. This piece of fabric can be at some point, if I keep using that. I don't know if I will keep using it until that point. But if I were to use that until that point, we will keep it. We will bring this piece of fabric to the stage or status as BORO, which is not something we are kind of proud of, because that means like I did not have enough resource to exchange it before it gets so dirty. So all item made of cloth could potentially have a BORO phase. I think it's the same thing, right? It will have a BORO phase, and usually the BORO, let's say it's like a station, right? Station. Usually the station after being BORO is the trash. the trash. Let's say the trash or being burned is the end, the last final station of the fabric, right? Technically speaking, I mean, that's not something I'm good at explaining, but let's say that the final place where fabric can go is the trash bin. I don't want to think that it's going to go to landfill, but let's say that it's trash. And BORO is very close to that last point. So BORO has, of course, many phrases. BORO to be, the first year BORO, or toward the end of the BORO. But it's more like status. It's not the technique. But now it's really introduced as technique. It's a very kind of nasty example. I don't know if this is equivalent, but every food we eat has the potential to be feces, right? Technically speaking. That is kind of the same process. The last phase of the feces is being flushed or being used as the first. I don't know. Anything is fine. But we don't call the feces as technique. It's just the stage of one item, one element. BORO is like that. If you keep processing it or taking advantage of those good things, I mean, taking advantage of it is a different thing, but by using, by getting benefit out of it, there we go. By getting a benefit out of it, one day it's gonna go to the. And we sometimes use that. This is like an analogy or use like a idiom wise, but we sometimes use the word borrow to the human too. It's the word to explain or describe the person who is at the end of those process, like right before being trashed, which means right before being, you know, completely crashed. If you don't look good, we say that you look boro boro. That's not a technique. That's not a technique or style to be. It's not a style or technique. It's just a moment of the one element. So some people say that, we cannot make authentic boro. That's kind of yes and no. Same time, that kind of explain that that person doesn't know anything about boro that deeply, but this can be authentic boro, but it requires some time. So for that meaning, it is impossible to make authentic boro tomorrow or next year. We have to get it from the vintage market or somewhere else. We have to depend on somebody who used that fabric to that extent. So it is true that we cannot make boro tomorrow, but in another word, any Sashiko project has a potential to be like boro. It's just a matter of how much we use. We probably won't use it to that extent, but so that's a very, very big misleading, which is kind of too late. Many people think that this is the boro, right? Many people think that the boro is the style. Boro is the way to patchwork some colorful upcycle, recycle fabric. It's not wrong. Don't get me wrong. It's not wrong, but it's not. Those people don't explain the story as I explained. Because they don't know. It's simply they don't know. And not knowing is fine. Pretending that knowing is the problem. Or pretending that they know everything and mislead others, saying that boro is the technique, is the problem. I didn't know that. It's perfectly fine because that's kind of our responsibility to speak up. Some people may disagree with me that, it's Japanese culture, so they have to be able to speak Japanese to get it. I agree. At the same time, it is somewhat our Japanese responsibility to speak up for that. So I'm doing it right now. But some people prefer to not to listen to those because it is already there. It's already formed. It's already a style. And especially if they make profit out of it, then I understand they don't change it. They cannot change it. It takes a lot of guts to change it. And that's why they don't. And that's what I'm fighting against. I don't consider them enemy. I just want them to sort of admit that they didn't know. I mean, which is kind of probably impossible for them to do it because they have been experts. Some of them have been expert, and then if they have to say that, well, I was wrong, that take a lot of guts. But I think that's the first step. Am I asking too much? I don't think. I used to think that I was asking too much, but not anymore. This is something even I have to do. It's not even a choice. I choose to do it, but it's really, really not a choice at this moment. If I want to protect where I grew up, what I grew up with, then as they keep saying there's something completely misleading, I can just smile and wave and then be silent. Oh, so hot. I hope your place is not this hot. Well, stitching this kind of thick fabric in the summer is also not a smart thing to do, so that's one thing that you shouldn't do. Yep. I think I will not be able to do the live streaming next week because I will be in Minneapolis and that's like a day before the teaching, so I may do that if the internet in the hotel is good. But usually when I say that, I don't do it because I'm preoccupied. I'm concentrating for the workshop. So it's probably safe to say that I won't do the live streaming next week. But what the heck is, oh. So yeah, at the same, no, I will not probably do the live streaming next week. But after that, I will be able to do that after that weekend, and also until the first weekend of August, which I have the workshop in New York City, not in New York City, I'm sorry, the Brooklyn, Dumbo. I will be able to do the live streaming. But yeah, thank you so much for coming. And unfortunately, really, it's very unfortunate. I'm very fortunate to have you here, but it's very unfortunate that this is the minority. It has the Sashiko. Those who try to learn what Sashiko is, those who try to learn what Sashiko is have become the minority because there's so many comfortable, easy information available, and they don't really care if that is like they don't care where those information comes from. So it will be something completely different. It has probably become, it will be more, and it is happening already. So I wish that I can do some like fun and positive. It's positive, to be honest. I'm not realizing myself being negative. It's just something I have to say. It's not being positive or negative. I wish I can do something more idiotic, more fun, laughing. But until that day comes, I will keep speaking up the things I have to speak up. My goal is to deliver that message. Okay, it's a little early today, but it's almost 10 o'clock. It's just too hot for me. I'm sorry. And I have been talking since 7:30. I had a meeting, a gathering for the Sashiko stitching, so it has been a long night. Okay, I hope you have a good night, and I hope to see you 2 weeks from now, not next week. I hope to see you there. And if you are nearby in Minneapolis, I will be there for Friday and Saturday, and 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock in the Textile Center, Minnesota, will be available to open, and I will be there. And for those in New York area, not Brooklyn, I will be there for the workshop on Saturday and Sunday, August 3rd and 4th. I believe that the workshop is still available, so that's a great after that, I don't have it until next year, 2025. So it's probably a good time to take a look at it. Okay, and I hope you have a good night, and I will see you in 2 weeks. Bye bye.